Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Through the Wardrobe, a narrative Narnia series where I'm your host, Jackson, and I'll be reading through The Chronicles of Narnia by C.S. Lewis. And this is the continuation of The Magician's Nephew, and we are getting very close, just a few chapters away from the end of the book. It has been a very fun adventure, to say the least. So, if you'd like to know what else has happened in the book, be sure to check out the whole playlist so far of Through the Wardrobe, which is only Magician's Nephew so far, but I will continue reading the whole series. So, from our last chapter in Strawberry's Adventure, chapter 12, basically what happened is Digory and Polly end up going on Fledge's back, who used to be called Strawberry, so there was a whole renaming sequence, I guess, with the king and queen of Narnia, as well as Strawberry, who is now Fledge, and they basically end up flying over the whole land of Narnia, pretty much, and see all of the uninhabited lands around Narnia, and land because they are very tired, and in the middle of the night they start hearing and seeing stuff that they don't know what is. And that's kind of where we end up in chapter 13, the current one, which is called An Unexpected Meeting. So, let's get into it. "Wake up, Digory. Wake up, Fledge," came the voice of Polly. "It has turned into a toffee tree, and it's the loveliest morning." The low early sunshine was streaming through the wood, and the grass was gray with dew, and the cobwebs were like silver. Just beside them was a little, very dark wooded tree, about the size of an apple tree. The leaves were whitish and rather papery, like the herb called honesty, and it was loaded with little brown fruits that looked rather like dates. "Hurrah!" said Digory, "but I'm going to have a dip first." He rushed through a flowering thicket or two down to the river's edge. Have you ever bathed in a mountain river that is running in shallow cataracts over red and blue and yellow stones with the sun on it? It is as good as the sea. In some ways, almost better. Of course, he had to dress again without drying, but it was well worth it. When he came back, Polly went down and had her bathe. At least she said that was what she'd been doing, but we know that she was not much of a swimmer, and perhaps it was best not to ask too many questions. Fledge visited the river too, but he only stood in midstream, stooping down for a long drink of water, and then shaking his mane and neighing several times. Polly and Digory got to work on the toffee tree. The fruit was delicious. Not exactly like toffee, softer for one thing, and juicy, but like fruit which reminded one of toffee. Fledge also made an excellent breakfast. He tried one of the toffee fruits and liked it, but said he felt more like grass at that hour in the morning. Then, with some difficulty, the children got on his back, and the second journey began. It was even better than yesterday, partly because everyone was feeling so fresh, and partly because the newly risen sun was at their backs, and of course, everything looks nicer when the light is behind you. It was a wonderful ride. The big snowy mountains rose above them in every direction. The valleys far beneath them were so green, and all the streams which tumbled down from the glaciers into the main river were so blue, that it was like flying over gigantic pieces of jewelry. They would have liked this part of the adventure to go on longer than it did. But quite soon they were all sniffing the air and saying, "What is it?" and "Did you smell something?" and "Where's it coming from?" For a heavenly smell, warm and golden, as if it were from all the most delicious fruits and flowers of the world, was coming up to them from somewhere ahead. "It's coming from that valley with the lake in it," said Fledge. "So it is," said Digory. "And look, there's a green hill at the far end of the lake. And look how blue the water is." "It must be the place," said all three. Fledge came lower and lower in wide circles. The icy peaks rose up higher and higher above. The air came warmer and sweeter every moment, so sweet that it almost brought the tears to your eyes. Fledge was now gliding with his great wings spread out motionless on each side, and his hooves pawing for the ground. The steep green hill was rushing towards them. A moment later, he alighted on its slope a little awkwardly. The children rolled off, fell without hurting themselves on the warm vine grass, and stood up panting a little. They were about 3/4 of the way up the hill, and set out at once to climb to the top. I don't think Fledge could have managed this without his wings to balance him, and to give him the help of a flutter now and then. All around the very top of the hill ran a high wall of green turf. Inside the wall trees were growing. Their branches hung out over the wall. Their leaves showed not only green, but also blue and silver when the wind stirred them. When the travelers reached the top, they walked nearly all the way around outside the green wall before they found the gates. High gates of gold, fast shut, facing due east. Up till now, I think Fledge and Polly had the idea that they would go in with Digory, but they thought so no longer. You never saw a place which was so obviously private. You could see at a glance that it belonged to somebody else. Only a fool would dream of going in unless he had himself been sent there on very special business. Digory himself understood at once that the others wouldn't and couldn't come in with him. He went forward to the gates alone. When he had come close to them, he saw words written on the gold with silver letters, something like this: "Come in by the gold gates, or not at all. Take of my fruit for others, or forbear. For those who steal, or those who climb my wall, shall find their heart's desire, and find despair." "Take of my fruit for others," said Digory to himself. "Well, that's what I'm going to do. It means I mustn't eat any myself, I suppose. I don't know what all that jaw in the last line is about. Come in by the gold gates. Well, who'd want to climb a wall if he could get in by a gate? But how do the gates open?" He laid his hand on one of them, and instantly they swung apart, opening inward, turning on their hinges without the least noise. Now that he could see into the place, it looked more private than ever. He went in very solemnly, looking about him. Everything was very quiet inside. Even the fountain which rose near the middle of the garden made only the faintest sound. The lovely smell was all around him. It was a happy place, but very serious. He knew which was the right tree at once, partly because it stood in the very center, and partly because the great silver apples with which it was loaded shone so and cast a light of their own down to the shadowy places where the sunlight did not reach. He walked straight across to it, picked an apple, and put it in the breast pocket of his Norfolk jacket. But he couldn't help looking at it and smelling it before he put it away. It would have been better if he had not. A terrible thirst and hunger came over him, and a longing to taste that fruit. He put it hastily into his pocket, but there were plenty of others. Could it be wrong to taste one? After all, he thought, the notice on the gate might not have been exactly an order. It might have been only a piece of advice, and who cares about advice? Or even if it were an order, would he be disobeying it by eating an apple? He had already obeyed the part about taking one for others. While he was thinking about all this, he happened to look up through the branches toward the top of the tree. There, on a branch above his head, a wonderful bird was roosting. I say roosting because it seemed almost asleep, perhaps not quite. The tiniest slit of one eye was open. It was larger than an eagle, its breast saffron, its head crested with scarlet, and its tail purple. "And it just shows," said Digory afterward, when he was telling the story to others, "that you can't be too careful in these magical places. You never know what may be watching you." But I think Digory would not have taken an apple for himself in any case. Things like "do not steal" were, I think, hammered into boys' heads a good deal harder in those days than they are now. Still, we can never be certain. Digory was just turning to go back to the gates when he stopped to have one last look. He got a terrible shock. He was not alone. There, only a few yards away from him, stood the witch. She was just throwing away the core of an apple which she had eaten. The juice was darker than what you would expect, and had made a horrible stain round her mouth. Digory guessed at once that she must have climbed in over the wall, and he began to see that there might be some sense in that last line about getting your heart's desire and getting despair along with it. For the witch looked stronger and prouder than ever, and even, in a way, triumphant. But her face was deadly white, white as salt. All this flashed through Digory's mind in a second. Then he took to his heels and ran for the gates as hard as he could pelt, the witch after him. As soon as he was out, the gates closed behind him of their own accord. That gave him the lead, but not for long. By the time he had reached the others and was shouting on, "Quick, get on, Polly, get up, Fledge," the witch had climbed the wall, or vaulted over it, and was close behind him again. "Stay where you are," cried Digory, turning round to face her, "or we'll all vanish. Don't come an inch nearer." "Foolish boy," said the witch, "why do you run from me? I mean you no harm. If you do not stop and listen to me now, you will miss some knowledge that would have made you happy all your life. Well, I don't want to hear it, thanks, said Digory, but he did. I know what errand you have come on, continued the witch, for it was I who was close beside you in the woods last night, and heard all your counsels. You have plucked the fruit in the garden yonder. You have it in your pocket now, and you are going to carry it back, untasted, to the lion, for him to eat, for him to use. You simpleton, do you know what that fruit is? I will tell you. It is the apple of youth, the apple of life. I know, for I have tasted it, and I feel already such changes in myself that I know that I shall never grow old or die. Eat it, boy, eat it, and you and I will both live forever, and be king and queen of this whole world, of your world, if we decide to go back there. No thanks, said Digory. I don't know that I care much about living on and on after everyone I know is dead. I'd rather live in an ordinary time and die and go to heaven. But what about this mother of yours, whom you pretend to love so? What's she got to do with it? Said Digory. Do you not see, fool, that one bite of that apple would heal her? You have it in your pocket. We are here by ourselves, and the lion is far away. Use your magic, and go back to your own world. A minute later you can be at your mother's bedside, giving her the fruit. 5 minutes later you will see the color coming back to her face. She will tell you the pain is gone. Soon she will tell you she feels stronger. Then she will fall asleep. Think of that. Hours of sweet, natural sleep. Without pain, without drugs. Next day everyone will be saying how wonderfully she has recovered. Soon she will be quite well again. All will be well again. Your home will be happy again. You will be like other boys. Oh, gasped Digory as if he had been hurt, and put his hand on his head, for he now knew that the most terrible choice lay before him. What has the lion ever done for you that you should be his slave? Said the witch. What can he do to you once you are back to your own world? And what could your mother think if she knew that you could have taken her pain away and given her back her life, and saved your father's heart from being broken, and that you wouldn't, that you'd rather run messages for a wild animal in a strange world that is no business of yours? I don't think he is a wild animal, said Digory in a dried sort of voice. He is, I don't know. Then he is something worse, said the witch. Look what he has done to you already. Look how heartless he has made you. This is what he does to everyone who listens to him. Cruel, pitiless boy. You would let your own mother die rather than... Oh, shut up, said the miserable Digory, still in the same voice. Do you think I don't see? But I promised. Ah, but you didn't know what you were promising, and no one here can prevent you. Mother herself, said Digory, getting the words out with difficulty, wouldn't like it. Awfully strict about keeping promises and not stealing and all that sort of thing. She'd tell me not to do it, quick as anything, if she was here. But she need never know, said the witch, speaking more sweetly than you would have thought anyone with so fierce a face could speak. You wouldn't tell her how you'd get the apple. Your father need never know. No one in your world need know anything about this whole story. You didn't take the little girl back with you, you know. That was where the witch made her fatal mistake. Of course, Digory knew that Polly would get away by her own ring as easily as he could get away by his. But apparently the witch didn't know this, and the meanness of the suggestion that he should leave Polly behind suddenly made all the other things the witch had been saying to him sound false and hollow. And even in the midst of all his misery, his head suddenly cleared, and he said, in a different and much louder voice, Look here, where do you come into all this? Why are you so precious fond of my mother all of a sudden? What's it got to do with you? What's your game? Good for you, Diggs, whispered Polly in his ear. Quick, get away now. She hadn't dared to say anything all through the argument because, you see, it wasn't her mother who was dying. Up then, said Digory, heaving her onto Fledge's back, and then scrambling up as quickly as he could. The horse spread its wings. Go then, fools, called the witch. Think of me, boy, when you lie old and weak and dying, and remember how you threw away the chance of endless youth. It won't be offered you again. They were already so high that they could only just hear her, nor did the witch waste any time gazing up at them. They saw her set off northward down the slope of the hill. They had started early that morning, and what happened in the garden had not taken very long, so that Fledge and Polly both said they would easily get back to Narnia before nightfall. Digory never spoke on the way back, and the others were shy of speaking to him. He was very sad, and he wasn't sure all the time that he had done the right thing. but whenever he remembered the shining tears in Aslan's eyes, he became sure. All day Fledge flew steadily, with untiring wings, eastward with the river to guide him, through the mountains and over the wild wooded hills, and then over the great waterfall and down, to where the woods of Narnia were darkened by the shadow of the mighty cliff, till at last, when the sky was growing red with sunset behind them, he saw a place where many creatures were gathered together by the riverside. And soon he could see Aslan himself in the midst of them. Fledge glided down, spread out his 4 legs, closed his wings, and landed cantering. Then he pulled up. The children dismounted. Digory saw all the animals, dwarves, satyrs, nymphs, and other things drawing back to the left and right to make way for him. He walked up to Aslan, handed him the apple, and said, "I've brought you the apple you wanted, sir." And yeah, there you go. That is the end of chapter 13. Very dramatic, I would say. A dramatic chapter as Digory literally just marches right in. He knows that he's the only one who can enter the garden, since he was basically sent there on his own personal mission, so to speak. And it was actually a really cool little, not so much, puzzle or riddle or anything, but it's just, as a kid, you kind of just only have that one that one mission in mind. So like, even though there's a bunch of words that he might not have thought through, he's just like, well, I'm only here for the apple for his mother. So, which is great. And yeah, I guess there was like a bird in the trees, which I assumed actually to be the witch. There are some folklore stories of how witches can basically transform into, birds or bats, like things like, I guess you could say like creatures of the night almost, but this is obviously not in the night, but I don't know. I just thought it was kind of interesting where a witch, I would assume that she was the bird in the moment. And yeah, she's been basically eating the apple from the garden here, which obviously I think since C.S. Lewis in his, I forget if it was in his later life, but he was a very strong Christian man, and so a lot of his books, were devoted to, the Christianity faith, which is great, and I still have to read some of his books because I know that they're really amazing, but obviously this is the whole different version of, Adam and Eve, I think, in the Garden of Eden, with the witch basically just saying, oh, just eat the apple, it's fine, it's, then you'll never die, and you get to see all these truths. And so it's definitely that very similar concept of the Garden of Eden, but with this chapter, Digory ends up basically not believing the witch before... after the witch is just like, forget Polly. She doesn't matter. And that's when Digory is like, oh, yeah, no, you know what? See you later. Which is great. So it's a good part of the story where we as the audience get to see Digory as kind of like the hero of the chapter. So you don't really get to see that too often because he's usually messing up or joking around or doing things like that, but now he's standing up to the witch, which is very great to see. And obviously, return to Aslan with the fruit, and that's where we're gonna end up with the next chapter. We only have 2 chapters left in the story, so I'm very excited to finish the book quite soon. So with that all being said, just be sure to check out the rest of my channel for some further support. I do have a playlist for Through the Wardrobe, so in case if you want to go back and listen to the whole story of the Magician's Nephew, you definitely can. It's been a fun story so far, and I can't wait to start the next one. So very, very fun times ahead. So with all the rambling and reading and talking out of the way, just stay tuned for the next episodes, and we'll see what else Narnia has in store for us. Farewell.